Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first game of the divisional round with your host, Ryan Koki of the Seahawks Recap Show. And it's the 2023-2024 divisional round of the playoffs. And how are we feeling? Well, it's the Ravens versus Texans in this one. And I said I wasn't going to bet against the Ravens in my divisional round predictions, and it looks like I was right. I wanted it to be a little bit closer, but that's not what we got. Unfortunately, as a football fan, I always want these playoff games to be close, but this was actually, it wasn't it was a blowout. So let's get into the first game of the divisional round. So it was a 34-10 win for the Ravens at home over the Texans. Let's start off with the Ravens stats. They had a total of 352 total yards, 123 yards passing, 229 yards rushing, averaged 6.3 yards per play, had 22 first downs. They went 4 for 12 on third down, went 2 for 2 on fourth down, had 67 total plays, 3 sacks allowed, 4 punts, had 3 penalties for 15 yards given up, 0 fumbles, 0 interceptions, and had 37 minutes and 35 seconds of possession time. For the Houston Texans, they had 213 total yards, 175 yards passing, 38 rushing yards, averaged 4.5 yards per play, 10 first downs, 4 for 12 on third down. They went 0 for 1 on fourth down, had 47 total plays, 0 sacks allowed, so that is a positive. Had 5 punts, 11 penalties for 70 yards given up, 0 fumbles lost, 0 interceptions, and 22 minutes and 25 seconds of possession time. And my focus players, let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens and let's talk about the man who runs this Baltimore offense. It is Lamar Jackson, 16 for 22, 152 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and here are the carry numbers: 11 carries, 100 yards, averaged 9.1 yards per carry, and had 2 touchdowns. So everybody was talking about Lamar's playoff record and saying, oh, he can't do it in the playoffs. He can't do it in the playoffs. 1-3 in the playoffs. Well, he showed up in this game. He made sure that no one was talking about his playoff record, and he set the record straight. Honestly, he is a great player. And, he's done really well, 100 yards on the ground by himself. That makes him the leading rusher on this team. And he just had a fantastic game. And it was just really a dominating performance from this Ravens team. But let's get to the actual running back. It's Justice Hill, 13 carries, 66 yards, averaged 5.1 yards per carry and 0 touchdowns. Justice Hill, he might not get the amount of yardage that Lamar Jackson does, but he is a power back. He's a guy that you'll see run through tacklers, and that's exactly what happened in this game. He was running through tacklers, getting the hard to get first downs, getting third downs when he needed to, and getting those yards from scrimmage. So all in all, great from this Ravens offense, getting more running backs involved than they needed to have Justice Hill in the fold. That's a nice running back room. Let's get to the wide receiver slash tight end. It's Isaiah Likely. And the reason why I highlighted him, 2 receptions, 34 yards, 17 yards per reception, 1 touchdown. And, you look at those stats and you go, why did you highlight him? Well, remember, he's filling in for Mark Andrews. Now, Mark Andrews had, I believe, a ankle injury. I forget when he suffered this injury, but it took him out. And Isaiah Likely has been filling in for him for a majority of the regular season and these playoffs, and he's done a fantastic job. Now, they will get Mark Andrews back for the conference championship game in the AFC, but he's done fantastic trying to fill in for Mark Andrews, who is arguably a top 4 tight end in the league right now. So good to see Isaiah Likely filling in his role. Let's get into the Houston Texans and let's get to the quarterback, CJ Stroud, 19 for 33, 175 yards passing, zero touchdowns, zero interceptions. So he didn't really cost his team the game, but he really just couldn't get anything going through the air. And it's more of the crowd noise, man. I think for CJ Stroud, going into a hostile environment, you kind of look at the Browns game and what he did to the Browns, and you think, "Oh my God, this guy is a rookie. This guy is doing really well as a rookie." He blew out the Browns last week in the wild card, but you get to a hostile environment on the road as a rookie, and it's very hard to hear. And that's why they gave up so many penalties. A lot of those penalties were pre-snap penalties on the offense for false starts and things of that nature. So for CJ Stroud, a decent game, just couldn't get much going on offense as a result. And the reason why they couldn't get much going on offense is because of the running back, Devin Singletary, 9 carries, 22 yards, averaged 2.4 yards per carry, zero touchdowns, but had 5 receptions, 48 yards, averaged 9.6 yards per carry, and zero touchdowns. And my whole thing with Devin Singletary is you can't establish the run. And that's a very big thing in this NFL. I know it's a passing league, but once you establish the run, you get the defense on their toes of it. Are they going to run? Are they going to pass it? It opens up the playbook, especially for a young QB like CJ Stroud. And if you can't establish the run, they're just going to tee off on CJ Stroud. And that's why this offense ultimately did fail to score actually on offense. Let's get to the wide receiver and let's talk about Nico Collins. There were a couple guys I could have talked about in this category, but I talked about Nico Collins in this one. 5 receptions, 68 yards, averaged 13.6 yards per reception, and zero touchdowns. It's all down to timing. It's all down to the hostile environment. It's all down to the amount of pressure that CJ Stroud was under. Because again, he's still a rookie. There's gonna be some nerves playing in a divisional round for the first time in your career. It's gonna be a little bit difficult. But Nico Collins, man, showed up 68 yards, not bad from him. I'd like to see him get a little bit more open, but these corners for the Ravens team are just so good. This is why they're one of the best defenses in the NFL right now. And speaking of defense, let's talk about the Ravens defense. And I gave the D line award to Jadeveon Clowney, such a menace. The former Texan, one solo tackle, one assisted, zero sacks, zero forced fumbles. Man, this whole D line was just a menace. This is the reason why they couldn't get anything done on the ground and they had to throw it all the time. But even when they threw it, this D line was getting in pressure. They didn't get sacks, but they forced CJ Stroud to not be comfortable. And that's something the Browns missed in their game against the Texans. They couldn't find ways to get in, pressure CJ Stroud. Well, one of the best defenses in the league found a way through the D line. So, all in all, good game from the Ravens D line and good game from Jadeveon Clowney putting up those numbers. But let's get to the DB and let's get to strong safety or just safety in general. Kyle Hamilton, he's been a menace. 3 solo tackles, zero sacks, zero interceptions. Could have had an interception in this game if it wasn't dropped, but tried his best. And the thing about Kyle Hamilton is when you watch him play, I haven't watched him play enough, but I know that when he was facing the Seahawks, in the regular season, he was a menace here and he was a menace in the playoffs as well. Getting down and dirty in the box, making sure that the run game was stuffed, making sure that when he was called upon, he could find open gaps in that O line to rush CJ Stroud. And, that's why he had 3 solo tackles because he was there down on the line, making sure not only could he come down as a box safety, but he could also uh, cover guys like Nico Collins, like Brevin Jordan. All in all, great game from these DBs. on the Ravens side, and I gave it to the linebacker Patrick Queen, 5 solo tackles, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions. And although Patrick Queen, he got burnt a little bit over the middle when Nico Collins got him for one play. Patrick Queen, another one who's just right there to make plays, right there to make tackles. He was in there on a couple of. We look at Patrick Queen, and he was covering Dalton Schultz. He was the guy that was covering Dalton Schultz, and that's the thing. He was doing it very well. And when you take away a tight end like Dalton Schultz from a guy like CJ Stroud, it can get very, very dire indeed. And this is why the Houston Texans offense couldn't get going. But let's talk about the Houston Texans defense. And let's talk about Sheldon Rankins for a second. 3 solo tackles, 0 assisted, 0 forced fumbles. And the thing with Sheldon Rankins in this Texans D line was that Sheldon Rankins, he was making tackles on Justice Hill. And, when you're going up against a dynamic player like Lamar Jackson, it's very difficult to bring a guy like that down. And you look at that and go, what are we gonna do against this guy? How are we gonna create pressure? And even when there is pressure, is Lamar going to just go out and run for yards? And that's what he did here. But it's a big task. But they held the Ravens to 10 points in the first half. So decent game from the D line. But let's talk about safety. Jalen Petrie, 4 solo tackles, 2 assisted, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions. Again, another guy who could have gotten a pick in this game. And, it just slips through his fingers, just like Kyle Hamilton. Just slips through his fingers, and that cost his team, and that could have been big momentum shift. But other than that, Jalen Petrie, again, a guy up there ready to make tackles on Isaiah Likely, Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay, Odell Beckham. And you know what? Jalen Petrie is a very, very talented safety. I can't wait to see what he does in the league throughout his career. And let's get to the linebacker, and it's deja vu. Christian Harris, one of the best linebackers that this Texans team has to offer. He had 6 solo tackles, 1 assisted, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions. And the thing with Christian Harris is that in that first half, Lamar Jackson was able to run and run and run, escape the pocket, no QB spy. And then D'Amico Ryans finally adjusted in that second quarter, saying, okay, Christian Harris, you're a fast guy, right? We're going to put you on a QB spy, making sure that Lamar Jackson can't run for as much yardage as he has been. And it really worked out. And that really stopped the this Ravens team from scoring more than 10 points in that first half. And I wish they'd done it more throughout the second half. It's insane to see that the tackling numbers were this good from Christian Harris. So good game from him all around. My final thoughts. Congratulations to the Baltimore Ravens on making the NFC Championship game since 2012 when they won it all with Jim Harbaugh. You guys put up 24 points unanswered in that second half against Houston. That's insanely a dominant performance from you guys. I expect nothing less from the first seed in the AFC. And you guys are just amazing. Like again, I've talked about you guys multiple times. This team is so balanced. This team is so balanced on both sides of the ball. There's a reason why you're one of the most electrifying defenses, in sacks. I believe he had 60 this year. Lamar Jackson's always been a dynamic threat who can change the course of a game, and he did there, getting 4 touchdowns for Houston. Although you guys lost this game, you guys should honestly be really proud of what you guys have accomplished this season. Going from 3-13 from last season and making it into the playoffs with a rookie QB and a rookie head coach. Remember, D'Amico Ryan has not coached in NFL head coaching gig before. And then winning a playoff game, that's just an amazing accomplishment. Also, a quick honorable mention to Steven Sims Jr. on that 67-yard punt return those types of plays are always really fun to watch, and I can't wait to see what this Texans team does in the future because that was only year 1 under this regime. So, if you guys have this much success, I would love to see what happens with you guys in the future. But anyways, that is it for game 1 recap of the divisional round. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like. Please consider subscribing, and I will see you guys in the next video for divisional round game 2, game 3, and game 4. Hope you enjoy the Sunday games, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.